Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it is 2 in the morning, and as usual when it comes to these thoughts videos, I can't sleep, so therefore it's time to have a chat about some of the core mechanics of the game and how I believe they should be changed. Today we're talking about research. The main reason is research is the key part of the game. The whole idea of War Thunder is to be able to play vehicles and play the ones you enjoy, and then of course research the next ones and have a bit of fun with them too. Research is the core mechanic when it comes to the whole game, and therefore it is definitely worth talking about. At the same time, when it comes to the stuff I'm going to be discussing today, I'm going to try and give counters to the ideas. The issue with whenever you are looking at research as a thing, you do have to think about that whatever you do in reducing research, you do hit the bottom line of the game, the actual economic side for Gaijin themselves. So therefore, you have to come up with things which would counterbalance those changes to make sure that the money is still flowing in for them. So first of all, let's talk about some simple changes that have happened recently in the past. The first one is obviously the heat FS change. As somebody who has been playing the AMX32 recently and also been playing a lot of other vehicles at these high BRs such as the new T72B 1989, one of the things I do have to say is the heat FS change is just rough. It's as simple as that. It isn't just against Soviet vehicles, it's against every top tier vehicle apart from stuff such as the lighter vehicles like the Type 16 running around. And what I would personally do is I would revert these changes. These obviously, if this change was made for a monetary reason, I think it's more of a negative change overall for the community enjoyment of the game, so therefore I would revert it no matter how much money is being taken out of it, because it's obviously going to displease a bunch of people and therefore create a negative atmosphere, which is obviously going to affect the game in other areas because of it. So that would be the first one. It seems pretty simple, right? The next one is all themed about making the vehicles a little bit more combat effective stock than they normally are. The major issue for me, and always will be when it comes to War Thunder, is the stock versus spaded experience. There are a bunch of vehicles in the game, a ton of them, which act completely differently from when they're stock compared to spaded. Some of the best examples are stuff such as the M60 series of vehicles, the M48s, even stuff like the M47s, and many other vehicles which don't have their best round stock, don't have access to NVDs or thermals, don't have access to speed, don't have access to artillery, smoke, all of these things which make these vehicles incredibly strong. Even stuff like rangefinders and laser rangefinders. The only thing nowadays it seems that you get from a stock vehicle, which is the same as the spaded one, is access to a stabilizer, and I really don't want that to become a modification. I'm sure that was a conversation that was had at some point. So therefore the first few little changes are going to be me talking about things that I would personally change to reduce the stock versus spaded experience and make them a bit closer. The first one is you make ammo limited. So right now the way that ammunition works for tanks and also planes and also pretty much everything else including naval and helicopters is unless you have the modification research, you do not have access to either the belts or the shells that you require in order to be a bit more combat effective. Why not, instead of just limiting it to modification, why not make it so instead ammunition you get a certain amount stock instead of just having to research stuff. What I mean by this, for example, is let's take something like a Leopard 2A5. You do get the ability to take as much heat FS as you want in the vehicle, but maybe you can also take a maximum of 5 rounds of APFSDS or 5 rounds of the different types of APFSDS. This would mean that as a stock vehicle you would be able to take a limited limited amount of the DM rounds, like the DM33 rounds, but at the same time, you would still have a little bit of access to them, and you could run the rest as heat. This would mean that the experience of grinding from a stock vehicle to a spaded would be easier, because you would have access to a few rounds to help. You could even increase the cost of these rounds to 1,000 a pop and make it so it would still make the experience much better for individuals. So all the modification would do is, instead of, completely giving you the round, it would make it so you could bring an unlimited amount of number of that round compared to, what your tank could actually carry. So instead of saying, let's say, taking 15 heat FS and then 5 of the APFS DS, because that would be your maximum amount without the modification, with the modification you could take more than 5 APFS DS. Maybe you switch them around, 15 APFS DS and 5 heat FS. The next one is changes fundamentally to parts and FPE. The first one is as simple as this. The naval machines do not actually have a reduction on their parts and FPE. I know a lot of people don't play top tier naval, but this is one of the big reasons why I personally am not really a fan of top tier naval or top ranked naval. It is such a difference between a stock cruiser and a spaded cruiser because of how expensive the modifications are, and I would want to reduce at least the parts and FPE equivalents for naval to make it so it would be equal to stuff like ground forces that already exist in the game. I've also talked about in the past the idea of being able to pick modifications which you personally want to reduce, so instead of being limited to just parts and FPE, you could put it on other things as well. Obviously, I still advocate for that idea. But yeah, naval reductions for parts and FPE would be wonderful, and also fundamental changes to parts and FPE. Parts should not be a modification where you can either repair your vehicle or you can't. Instead, what it should be is a time thing. A lot of changes when it comes to modifications to the vehicles add an extra 5% of usefulness. The engine adds a bit, the engine upgrades adds a bit of horsepower, adds a bit of top speed, and the whole idea is you take out an old engine and bring in a new one. I feel the idea that a stock crew on a stock vehicle would not be able to repair parts of it a little bit odd when we compare it to some of the other factors. So even though we have that situation in War Thunder now, where if a module gets taken out on your vehicle, you can still very much semi-repair it, I don't think that's good enough. Instead, parts should be changed, so if you don't have parts, it takes a long time to repair. Let's say, for example, 120 seconds for a cannon, and then once you get parts, it would reduce that time instead of just making it so you can either repair or you can't. So with the parts modification, the cannon barrel will be repaired in 60 seconds. Without it, it will be repaired in 120. So it would just mean your crew is more efficient at repairing your machine, instead of the idea that they can't repair it at all and then making them super soldiers at repairing everything. So literally just an efficiency modification over everything else. FPE should be a standard thing, but in order to have a bit of give or take, the idea I've ran with for many years now and still believe in is on a stock vehicle you should have 1 FPE, and the modification should give you access to 2 FPEs and also being able to rearm the FPEs at a point. Very similar to how shells work, very similar to how a smoke launchers work, and pretty much everything else apart from ESS and FPE. These should also be things you can reload on points. I don't know why there wouldn't be a reason to do that, apart from the fact that you don't want people repairing over and over and over again on points and being able to get knocked out of the game. The next ones are a little bit all over the place, and some of them are actually come from certain community members. Dog for Life actually talked about one, which we'll get into a bit later. But the first one is pretty much a mechanic which is seen in a lot of games, and I think it's very successful. The idea of everybody on the losing team getting a losing bonus and everybody on the winning team get a winning bonus is, in my opinion, wrong, because a lot of people on the winning team do not actually, they're not able to make it so, they don't contribute to the win, and then you have people on the losing team who should have won, but they were kind of dragged down by their teammates. So why not try and put in a system which tries to give a bonus to people who were on the losing team and also a loss to people on the winning team who didn't contribute? So the first thing I would do is, for the losing team, the top, let's say 3 or 4 players, or maybe a percentage of players, they would get the winning bonus. So instead of just losing, even if you get, let's say, 15 kills, or let's say you captured a bunch of zones, maybe you held a sector really well, you would be able to get that winning bonus even on the losing team. Now obviously there is a bit of issue here, because there are ways in the game where you can get mission score without really, playing around the objectives and stuff, but I think that's completely fine. That should be just something that everybody can do, therefore everybody can play the system. And then to counteract this, on the losing team, the bottom 3 or 4 or bottom percentage set of players, whatever you want to pick, they get the losing bonus instead of the winning bonus. So this would mean that you would be able to balance them out. Meaning that overall players would get more RP, because the players on the winning side who are bottom are generally not going to get as high a bonus as someone on the losing side, which has a lot of kills and stuff with a winning bonus. But that benefits the community and also gives an illusion of balance between the two things. So a simple system which I fully support. The next one is the idea that if you kill a higher BR vehicle, then you would get a bonus, whereas if you kill a lower BR vehicle, then you will get less of a bonus. So right now, it seems standard across the board, depending on, what you kill, what you get in terms of research. So if you kill in one shot a machine like a Tiger 2, compared to a machine like even a Tiger 2P and a Tiger 2H, you're going to get basically the same RP. What if you made it so if you are in a full up tier, let's say you're in a 5.7 versus a 6.7, if you kill a 6.7 machine in a 5.7 vehicle, you will gain more RP from that, or more mission score from that, than killing a 5.7 in a 5.7 vehicle. This would promote people going for engagements, which, they obviously wouldn't before, knowing that they were a low BR, and also credit people more for the work that they do by being up-tiered and still holding their own. There are a lot of players which get fully up-tiered and still play incredibly well, still get to the top of their, respective scoreboard. And I feel that should be rewarded through a system like this. Now, the other side of the coin is, let's say you're in a 6.7 vehicle and you're just beating up on 5.7 vehicles instead of facing the 6.7s which are in your game. Now, you would get less RP than before if you killed 5.7s instead of 6.7s, because, as I said, there has to be a balance on this, and I think it's fair to say that if you're in a 6.7 killing a 5.7, it's easier than using a 5.7 killing a 6.7. So once again, just trying to make it that if you are against the odds, if you are being, if you are really up against it, you get more of a bonus out of it because you were able to conquer the odds instead of just doing what you should have been doing anyway. This could easily be limited to the 1-0 BR spread as well, so you'd have no shenanigans of a 2-0 vehicle being up-tiered into, let's say, an 8-0 game and getting a ridiculous amount of RP because it gets 1 kill. So just limit it to the spread, all will be good. The next one is another part of research which I generally don't talk about, and it's silver lions. Remember to turn off auto repair when it comes to your silver lions. Trust me, it will save you money. If you need further details, please join me on my Twitch stream and I will go through why basically it all works. And just turn it off, just do it. You will save SL just by doing it. today, right now, this second. When it comes to other stuff, silver lines, I see a lot of people complaining about repair costs. I personally haven't had this issue for my whole, War Thunder time. Right now I sit at about 44 million SL, and I don't, use a ton of premiums. I just grind through the trees and never really had an issue. So when it comes to the SL stuff, I'm not exactly, keyed in on a lot of the arguments, but I do understand that there is a push for, lowering repair costs. I don't think that's going to happen because they're integral to the economy system of the game, but I think there is an option. So you know how you can buy talismans for premium for vehicles? What if, instead of just being able to buy talismans for SL for vehicles, effectively making them premium vehicles, what if every month in the War Bond shop you could get yourself a War Bond SL talisman? And this would be a universal SL talisman. It would times 2 or times 1.5 to any vehicle in the game, apart from the premiums, just standard tech tree vehicles. You could plonk this SL talisman on, and what this would do is it would increase the rewards that you get through SL from a standard tech tree vehicle. Talismans right now, if you put them on vehicles, they only give you a research bonus, an RP bonus. They don't give you an SL bonus, where what I'm proposing here would give you just an SL bonus and no RP bonus. What you could also put in as a qualifier is you cannot have two different types of talismans on vehicles. Therefore, you can either have an RP talisman or an SL talisman, but not both, because that would effectively make it a premium vehicle. You could also change the cost of the SL talismans, so they're very hard to get. Maybe you make them the same or just a little bit less than the premium vehicles that are on offer in the War Bond shop. I'm a big fan of the War Bond shop. I think it's a great resource for players to be able to get stuff, in the game for free. And I'd like to see it expanded. There's also other stuff like more squadron bonuses, a little bit more for teamworks, a little bit more for sporting fires, a little bit more for stuff such as best squad. But you know what? Those have to be balanced out by other stuff such as reduction in actual overall SL earned from kills, reduction in amount of mission, SL from mission score. So, that one I'm a little bit tricky about, because it is really nice, playing in a squadron in War Thunder, but at the same time, I don't really want to batter the lone wolves when it comes to these ideas. The next one is bring back times 2s and maybe even times 5s, but with a caveat. So if you didn't know, before we had the booster system that we have now. The booster system is when you log into the game, you get a daily bonus, which is normally in the form of a booster, like a plus 10% RP for 20 games, or plus 30% SL for 5 games, and you can get these in random, drops after games or during other things. You can get them in the War Bond shop as well. By the way, the ones in the War Bond shop, they don't have a time limit on them, so you can just keep them forever out of that box on the first tier. So yeah, just pick that up if you just have some War Bonds laying around, so you can get yourself a nice booster which doesn't have a time limit on top of it. But, as I said, these are all new features which were added after the times 2 was taken away. What if we added in the times 2s again for RP and SL for your first game of the day in a nation, but we only give it to nations which you haven't played either in a few days or in a week or so? This would promote people playing different tech trees. This would promote people playing, different vehicles. And this would mean that we have more variety in the game, while also giving people a little bit of boost in RP and a little bit of boost in SL. Now, this doesn't have a direct effect or counter to it. Basically, this will lose Gaijin money straight away, because of the fact that there'll be people who won't have to grind as much, therefore, the money floor will go down. But the main thing to take out of this is this will get people engaged more in separate nations that they're not normally used to, and may even play the game more because of that, because they find some vehicles that they enjoy and they start researching in those tech trees and they start, playing. One of the saddest things that I've seen across War Thunder is looking at, whenever on stream we look at people's service records, whenever I look at, people's on the tech hubs service records, or just random people's in games, hardly anybody has ground out China. Like, it must be a tree which is hardly touched by the majority of people, and by that I mean like got to like mid tiers or top tiers. Wouldn't it be nice that if this new system was put in, this would mean that this would entice people to play some of the nations they don't normally play, and therefore they get more play, which I think is, what at least I would like to see. I'd like to see more people play different nations. The next one is a battle token system. Now, we've talked about stuff in the past, like battle passes and battles themselves, battle replays, all of these things, but battle tokens is an idea where what you will get is if you play something which is a smaller game mode. Now, obviously this could change all the time depending on the figures which are happening, but let's just pick naval for the time being. We could pick helicopters or EC or something like that, but let's just say naval. What if we set up a system where if you play 5 naval games at specific BRs for that week, e.g. 23233, you can get, after playing 5 games, a universal repair token. What this would mean is after every 5 games, you get this token and you can apply it to any vehicle that has not been repaired or has been repaired and you want to give it a free repair. So this would promote the smaller game modes in the game so more people play them. It could promote different BRs in the game because of this system. And it would also mean that people would get more experiences in War Thunder and try different things, even coupling it with the ×2s that we talked about before. You could do it in a different way as well. What if you did it through the Warbond shop once again, where the Warbond shop has a repair wager to it? Or maybe you could get the repair wager in a daily task or in some form of task. And the wager would be complete X naval games, complete 10 naval games with an 80% battle activity, and you gain 3 free universal repairs which can be used on anything. So this means that you will, effectively play 10 naval games, and you will be able to afford those top tier MBTs which, everybody complains about so much. So therefore, it means you get to experience more of the game. It means that you can pay for those repairs because they'll technically be free, and at the same time it means that there'll be less complaining about the repair costs, whether you see them as an issue or not. I really like all of these ideas. I think they could easily fit into the game. I don't see too many issues with them apart from the monetary one, but I've tried my best to make it so those are addressed in this video. If there are any thoughts when it comes to the negative aspects of these, please let me know. I'd love to hear about them so I can refine these ideas a little bit more. But as always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.